Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I walked into the golf club in flats and a blouse I steamed twice. My sister Courtney had picked the place. White tablecloths, chandeliers, valet. The kind of place where the wine list has more pages than the menu. She stood right by the bar, already in a conversation she clearly thought was worth photographing. She saw me and waved like she was doing me a favor. "There she is," she said loud enough to grab attention. "Our family's own rebel. Made it out even though she hates being around successful people." People laughed. I gave a smile so tight it hurt my jaw. "My name's Tessa. I'm 32. I live in Pasadena, California. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from?" Courtney pulled me into a stiff hug like she was hosting a charity event. "Well, glad you could make it. I know this crowd's a little upscale for you." Mom appeared right on cue, touching my arm like I was a toddler. "You look so nice tonight, sweetie. So grown up. I've been grown for over a decade, but thanks." My brother Devin showed up with a beer already in hand. "Hey, does your company give out coupons for cheap flights? I might need to fly back out next weekend." "Office assistant, not travel agent," I said, forcing a laugh. He didn't even blink. We got seated near the window. Round table, crisp napkins, more silverware than I planned to use. The waiter brought sparkling water and a menu where the cheapest dish still felt like a typo. Dad raised his glass. Couldn't have asked for a better send-off. 35 years in the business, and I'm walking away on top, but I'm most proud of my kids. Courtney, of course, killing it in tech. Devin, the rocket scientist. I mean, literally. And Tessa, he turned toward me like he was rapping a punchline. Well, Tessa's always like being behind the scenes. That's just her style. Everyone chuckled, like it was cute. I kept my mouth shut. I'd learned that in this family. Correcting the story just makes you look bitter. Dad lost his job the summer before my senior year. Bills were tight. Someone had to bring in money, and I'd been working ever since. But sure, let's pretend I dropped out because I was non-academic. I ordered the chicken. Cheapest thing on the list. When it arrived, Courtney nodded approvingly. "Smart choices," she said. "That's what it's all about." I took a sip of water, let it burn down. Then I reached for my knife and started cutting. Courtney swirled her wine like she was in a commercial and leaned toward Dad. "So the IPO's tracking for mid-December. My bonus will clear right after the freeze ends. Should hit 7 figures if the market holds." Dad's eyebrows went up like he'd just seen his stocks jump. "That's incredible, Court." Devin cut in from across the table. "You're actually going to be liquid after a liquidity event? That's rare. Most people get locked into equity forever." Courtney grinned and tapped her glass to his. "Perks of being on the founding team." I stayed quiet and chewed my chicken. Tasted like it had been reheated in gold-plated plastic. They tossed around words like equity, options vesting, and cap table like we were at a hedge fund happy hour. Devin shifted the topic. "Anyway, I'll be in Sweden next month for a systems conference. Our team's presenting on adaptive architecture for multi-orbit satellites." Mom smiled wide. "That sounds so important." Devin shrugged, half modest. "Yeah, it's high-stakes stuff. International vendors, government observers. Could lead to a long-term partnership." I refilled my water and kept chewing. Then Mom looked at me like she just remembered I existed. "Tessa, remember those little cartoons you used to draw on the computer back in high school? I always said you were our creative one, not the academic type, but still so. Imaginative." There it was. The compliment with barbed wire wrapped around it. Dad laughed. "Yeah, well, it's good you found steady work. That's more than most people can say these days." Steady? Like I was a stable temperature. Not hot, not cold, just there. Courtney glanced up from her phone. "I've got decorators coming next week. I'm hiring a firm this time. I don't have time to micromanage wallpaper." Devin nodded. "Good call. Image matters, especially in leadership. Even your LinkedIn background photo has to show you're on the right level." "You changed yours to a skyline, right?" she asked him. "Yeah, and a shot of me on stage at the Chicago summit." I wiped my mouth with the napkin and stared at the centerpiece. White roses in a glass cube. Every word they said stacked another brick on that wall between us. "You still living in that same apartment?" Courtney asked, barely glancing at me. "Yeah," I said. "Still suits me fine." She sipped her wine and turned back to Devin. God, I had to fight to get a place with actual sunlight. My last condo felt like a panic room. Devin laughed. "Lighting's a silent killer. Kills your productivity, kills your vibe." I wondered if either of them had ever worried about paying rent on time. Probably not. Then Mom turned to me again, with that helpful smile she always used before offering advice I didn't ask for. You know what might be fun for you? Those day in the life videos, like the ones Courtney posts on LinkedIn. I bet people would love to see what an assistant does all day. Courtney snapped her fingers. Yes, like a come run errands with me. Vibe, show your color-coded calendar system. You've always been organized. I gave a short nod and pushed food around my plate. No one asked how many people I manage. No one cared that I built that entire system from scratch because the one before mine crashed every week and bled time and money. To them, it was cute. Just me with my little planner and my busy little days. Devin pulled out his phone. You should record it in vertical format. It's better for engagement. You might even go viral. I laughed once through my nose and folded my napkin. Excuse me, I said, pushing my chair back. I walked toward the bathroom, each step sharper than the last. My hands itched to hit something. But instead, I just shoved the door open and let it slam behind me. I came back to the table right as the waiter dropped off dessert menus. No one asked if I was okay. No one even looked up. Dad glanced over his glasses. So, how's the desk job going? Desk job. Like I was just warming a seat until something real came along. It's going, I said. Busy week. Lot of calls, scheduling stuff, coordinating changes. Courtney raised her eyebrows like she was impressed, but not really. Are you still using that calendar system you made back in the day? She asked. God, I remember you used to label everything in 5 colors. Looked like a craft project. Still use it, I said. Ergonomic chairs are a game changer, she added, turning to Devin. I made HR order Herman Millers for the entire ops team. Total morale booster. Smart, Devin said. We had to do the same after onboarding. Bad chairs cost money. They both nodded like they were passing down commandments from Mount Tech. I leaned back in my own chair. Fabric, no lumbar support. But mine wasn't for show. Mom piped up, cheerful again. You know what I was thinking, Tessa? You should post one of those day-in-the-life videos, like Courtney does. I almost laughed. It makes you look more professional, she went on. People love seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff. You could show off your desk setup, your calendar tricks. Courtney jumped in. And the scheduling part. Seriously, there are assistants on TikTok with thousands of followers just for showing what they pack in their lunchboxes. Devin chuckled. Maybe throw in a time lapse of you typing really fast. Courtney raised her wine glass. To inspiring other assistants with color-coded determination. They all laughed like they'd just nailed a perfect joke on family game night. I nodded once, just enough to keep the peace. That's all they wanted anyway. Smiles and silence. I didn't explain that my system schedules over 200 staff across 3 regional offices. I didn't mention the automation protocol I built to sync coverage maps in real time. I didn't bother saying the reason my calendar looks like a rainbow is because it tracks 12 different operational zones and 4 different levels of staffing approval chains. Because what would be the point? In their minds, I answered phones, forwarded emails, and maybe made a color-coded to-do list if I was feeling ambitious. They didn't want to know more. They wanted me to stay where they'd put me. Anyway, Courtney said, checking her watch, I might need to dip out early. I've got a call with Sydney first thing. Different time zone, different drama. Devin stood up halfway. Oh, I should show you guys the conference lineup. Hold on. He pulled out his phone and started swiping through PDFs like we were dying to see technical specs for Swedish satellites. Dad clapped him on the back. Show Tessa too. Maybe she can color code it for you. Another round of polite chuckles. Mom even clapped lightly. I smiled, clenched my fork, and focused on the menu. Chocolate lava cake or tiramisu. Neither sounded good anymore. The waiter walked up and asked if we were ready to order dessert. I looked him dead in the eye. I'll just take black coffee. I was halfway through my coffee when a hush rolled across the dining room. Chairs shifted. A waiter dropped his tray. Everyone turned toward the entrance like royalty had just walked in. A tall man in a dark blazer stepped in, flanked by 2 younger staffers. The hostess rushed over, lots of nodding, smiles, whispering. Then one of them peeled off and started walking straight toward our table. She stopped next to me and lowered her voice. Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Is Miss Fields here? I raised my hand, slow and calm. That's me. Courtney's wine glass froze midair. Devin blinked like someone just smacked the back of his head. The man in the blazer followed behind the staffer. extending his hand with a practiced, confident smile. Miss Fields, it's great to finally meet you in person. I'm Martin, Assistant GM here. Just wanted to thank you for the leadership module your team put together. It's been a game changer for us. I stood and shook his hand. His grip was firm, respectful, like he already knew exactly who I was. Our director said the metrics improved across the board. Productivity's up, floor errors down, even morale scores climbed. Honestly, we didn't expect results that fast. Glad to hear it, I said. If you'd prefer a private room, we can move your party now. It's not a problem. We usually do that when you're on site. I felt Courtney's stare. I could feel all of them staring. No, we're good here, I said, sitting back down. He smiled again. Of course. Just let us know if anything's off. Always a pleasure, Miss Fields. Then he nodded to the server, turned on his heel, and walked away like he had somewhere more important to be. Silence hit the table like a dropped plate. Nobody spoke, not even Devin, who usually couldn't shut up for longer than 15 seconds. Courtney's face had gone completely still, not confused, not surprised, just frozen, like her brain short-circuited and forgot how to reboot. Mom looked down at her lap, then back up at me like she didn't recognize the person across the table. Dad stared at his napkin, slowly folding and unfolding the corner like it was the only thing keeping him from glitching out too. I took another sip of coffee. No one said a word, and I didn't say a damn thing either. Mom finally broke the silence, her voice thin. Tessa, how do you know the manager here? I set my cup down. I've been here before. A few times for work. Devin leaned forward, elbows on the table. For work? This place costs a fortune? How do you even afford that? Courtney cut in before I could answer. Wait, didn't he just say private room? Why would you need that? I slid my fork into what was left of my chicken and took a slow bite. Chewed, swallowed, said nothing. Courtney's nails clicked against her glass. Seriously, what's going on? The server appeared at my side, clutching a tablet. She looked nervous. Miss Fields, I'm so sorry about the mix-up with your bill. We've adjusted it now. I glanced up. Mix-up. Yes, it usually gets comped under your corporate plan. Someone on our end forgot to flag it this time. Dad's head snapped up. Corporate plan? The server nodded. Horizons Development Group, your company, is one of our largest consulting clients. We're very sorry for the inconvenience. I felt everyone's eyes burning into me. I'll handle the bill after dinner, I told her. She nodded quickly. Of course, Miss Fields. My apologies again. She turned and disappeared toward the kitchen. Dad stared at me, his voice low. What the hell is Horizons Development Group? Devin's eyebrows shot up. And why are they paying your bill? Courtney's lips curled. You're telling me your desk job comes with a corporate plan at a country club. I cut another piece of chicken. I said I'd handle the bill. That's not what I asked, Dad said. Courtney leaned in, eyes sharp. So you've been coming here. How many times? Weekly? Monthly? Enough, I said. Enough for a private room. She pressed. I reached for my water. My hand was steady, but my chest felt like a drum. We're eating right now. Let's just finish dinner. Devin gave a short laugh. This is insane. You've been holding out on us. Mom tried to soften it with a smile that didn't land. Honey, you can tell us. We're your family. I put my fork down and met her eyes. And I said, we'll handle the bill after dinner. No one said another word. I picked my fork back up and started eating again, one bite at a time, like nothing at all had changed. Courtney finally set her wine glass down, hard enough to make it clink. Okay, she said. What exactly do you do? I looked up, calm as ever. I run a consulting firm. She frowned. Wait, what? My title is assistant, sure, on paper, but I'm the founder. I run Horizons. Devin blinked. Wait, you own Horizons, that company, the one the server just said? I nodded. Yeah, that one. Courtney leaned back like her chair had tilted. What the hell do you mean you run a firm? You're not even on LinkedIn. I'm not trying to be on a list, I said. I'm trying to run a business. Dad looked down like he was trying to find the last 5 years on the table. So, you're not someone's assistant. I built the company. From scratch, I said. 5 years ago, I was working for a logistics firm. Nights, weekends, the works. I started sketching out a scheduling system because the one we used was garbage. People were burning out, shifts got double booked, payroll was a mess. I made something better. One of the managers saw it, asked if I could build it out for their other branches. And you just did it, Devin asked. Yep. Courtney's voice dropped. But you never said anything. You never asked. She stared at me like I was speaking in Morse code. So, what does your company actually do? We build custom training platforms and back-end scheduling systems for large organizations, I said. HR teams, ops teams, clubs like this. Anywhere people are wasting time doing things manually, we automate it. I don't post about it. I just deliver results. Devin ran a hand through his hair. So, you don't answer phones all day? No, I manage client accounts, design systems, and run a full team. The assistant title keeps things simple when I need to handle contracts or travel bookings personally. Dad let out a breath, finally catching up. You've been doing all that, while we thought you were just pushing papers. I stopped explaining a long time ago, I said. Courtney picked up her napkin, folded it, then unfolded it again. So when you said you were busy with scheduling, I meant I was coordinating operations across 3 states for a manufacturing client that moves $40 million in inventory every month. Devin's jaw tightened. How many people work for you? Directly? 12. But we subcontract development work. I have rotating teams depending on the project. And you really started all this while working full-time? Dad asked. I nodded. I didn't have a choice. After you lost your job, I was covering rent, groceries, the car payment. I couldn't afford to sit around waiting for someone to take a chance on me. Courtney was silent. For once, no punchline, no sarcastic jab, just silence. I leaned back in my chair and looked around the table. You all love to talk about grit and grind and leadership. But the second I didn't follow your blueprint, you stopped looking. You decided I was the underachiever, so I let you think that. Dad squinted at me. And you're successful. I don't need to brag, I said, but I haven't worried about money in a long time. And yes, we're profitable, growing, in negotiations for 3 new contracts right now. Courtney's voice was flat. And you've kept this quiet for how long? Since the beginning, I said, because this family only hears what fits the story it already believes. I picked up my coffee and took a slow sip. No one moved, no one dared, and I didn't fill the silence for them. Nobody said a word, so I kept going. After college, I didn't move cities or travel or do post-grad anything. I stayed local because Dad lost his job and someone had to keep the lights on. Dad looked down, but I didn't stop. I worked full-time at a logistics company doing ops support. The system they used was ancient, manual tracking, constant errors. I'd stay late and fix everything behind the scenes just to make sure my team didn't get hit with delays. Courtney opened her mouth, then shut it again. I started building something on my own time, a platform to automate all the scheduling and reduce labor waste. Nothing fancy at first, just Excel and scripts, but I kept tweaking it until it ran smooth. Devin's eyes narrowed. You built the actual system yourself. Every line, tested it on my team without telling management. After 3 months, the data showed we saved over $80,000 in labor and overtime. One of the regional managers caught wind, pulled me into a meeting, and asked if I could scale it to other branches. I paused just long enough to let that land. That was the start. I spent nights and weekends building the full version. No social life, no vacations, just code, test, fix, repeat. Courtney tilted her head, squinting like she was rewinding years in her mind. Wait, was that around the same time you skipped Thanksgiving? Yep, I had a deadline for a pilot program. Her eyes lit up slightly. You told us you were working on a side project? I was. Devin chimed in. And that Easter, you left early. Said you had to meet someone. A client, I said. My first paying one. Courtney's brow furrowed. We thought you were freelancing or, I don't know, making apps for fun. I let out a short laugh. You called it playing pretend startup founder, remember that? She blinked like I'd slapped her. I didn't mean you didn't care. You rolled your eyes, made a joke, and moved on. Devin scratched his jaw. You never mentioned any of this. I tried, a few times, but it was always Courtney's promotion or Devin's flight to God knows where. I learned to just keep my mouth shut and get the work done. Dad finally looked up. So how'd you go from that to owning a whole firm? I kept my expenses low. No office, no hires at first. Just me and my laptop at the kitchen table. I reinvested every dime I made. Built client by client. Took out a business loan after my third contract. Paid it off in 2 years. Started hiring once I couldn't handle the demand alone. Mom whispered, "You did all that by yourself." "Yes," I said. "No advisors, no funding. Just the pressure of having no backup plan and no safety net." Courtney looked away, her jaw tight. "I wasn't chasing a dream," I added. "I was surviving. And once I realized how many businesses needed what I could build, I stopped waiting for anyone's approval." The table went quiet again. No defense, no pushback. Just faces trying to reorganize everything they thought they knew. I leaned forward and grabbed the edge of my plate, and I cleared it myself. I'd barely set my plate aside when I saw the club manager walking back toward our table. Same sharp suit, same confident stride. "Miss Fields, sorry to interrupt again," he said, standing just behind my chair. "Just wanted to let you know the regional director reviewed the last session you led. She'd like to schedule a follow-up. Same focus. Maybe expanded to include the operations team." I nodded once. "Sure, I'll have my assistant reach out to coordinate." He smiled, then added, "Also, small win I thought you'd want to hear. Since implementing your time-blocking method, the restaurant staff has reduced prep errors by 20%. "Good to hear," I said. "We appreciate the impact." "As always, a pleasure, Miss Fields." He gave a slight nod and walked off like he'd just reported to a boardroom, not a dinner table. I turned back to find all four of them locked in place. Devin's mouth was open. Mom's eyes were wide. Courtney hadn't blinked. Devin was the first to get a word out. "Wait, how many clients do you have?" I wiped the corner of my mouth with my napkin. "Over 30 active, across 6 states." Courtney stared at me like I was made of glass, and she was seeing straight through to something she'd never noticed before. "So, you don't just answer phones?" I shook my head. "Nope, I built systems people run their companies on." She sat back, slow, like her spine just lost its shape. Devin rubbed his jaw. "That guy said regional director. You're consulting at that level." "Yeah. How many people use your systems?" I gave a small shrug. "Thousands, if you count everyone across the organizations. Not that I track that stat." Courtney let out a breath. "And you don't post about any of it?" "Nope." Dad was quiet for a second, then said, almost under his breath, "We've been wrong about you." I looked over at him. His face had changed, not proud, not apologetic, just off balance, like someone moved the floor under him. "You assumed I was the fallback kid," I said, "that I wasn't driven." That I settled, but I've never needed applause. I just needed space to work. Mom touched her necklace and spoke gently. "Tessa, we didn't know. If you'd told us—" I tried. A few times. Courtney still looked dazed. "All these years, you've been sitting on this empire and just letting us believe you were filing papers." "I didn't let you believe anything," I said. "You all decided that before I even opened my mouth." Devin gave a short laugh. "Damn, I thought I was the overachiever." "I don't care about titles," I said. "I care about function. I fix what's broken and make things more efficient. Doesn't matter if it's a golf club or a logistics chain." Courtney leaned forward, voice flat. "So while we've been over here flexing about condos and IPOS, you've been running a silent empire from your kitchen table." "Started at the kitchen table," I corrected. "Now I have an office. And staff. And contracts booked months in advance." They all just stared at me, and for once, I let them. The server returned, this time with a tray so polished I could see my own reflection in the handles. "I have something special from the chef," she said, setting it down in front of me. A custom chocolate tower, layers of dark milk and white chocolate spiraled together like a sculpture. Gold flakes on top. "With appreciation for Miss Fields," she added. Nobody else got one. Mom stared at it like it might explode. Her hands were still folded in her lap, napkin pressed flat against her skirt. Her face didn't move, but I saw the flicker behind her eyes, like something didn't compute, like she was still staring at the version of me she thought she raised, and it didn't line up with the woman getting VIP treatment at a country club. I picked up my fork and broke off a piece of the chocolate shell. Devin finally cleared his throat. So, wait, how are you structuring the back end on your training platforms? In-house or vendor-based? I chewed, swallowed. Hybrid. We build the core functions in-house, then contract out testing and edge case features. Keeps overhead lean. He nodded, impressed. And you manage the full scope. Every project, from system mapping to delivery. Courtney still hadn't touched her dessert. She was watching me like she was waiting for me to switch back into the version of myself she understood. I had no idea you were doing all this, she said, voice low. You never asked, I said. Her mouth opened, then closed again. I never needed approval, I added, just respect. She looked down at her plate. Dad finally spoke. Well, I mean, I'm proud. I am. I just. He didn't finish the sentence. He looked like someone who'd spent his whole life drawing a map, only to find out the landmarks were wrong. I know, I said. It's fine. I didn't need more from him. He wasn't ready to give it away. Mom still hadn't spoken. Her eyes bounced between the chocolate tower and my face like she was trying to figure out if this was an act. It wasn't, so I took another bite. It was rich, dense, real chocolate. None of that waxy nonsense. Devin leaned over a little. What's your margin look like? Depends on the client, but we average about 42% net. Jesus, he muttered. Courtney finally grabbed her fork, pushed it into her untouched dessert, then set it down again. They didn't know what to say now, and I didn't feel the need to help them. I didn't gloat. I didn't correct them. I didn't spell it out with PowerPoint slides or a smug grin. I just sat there and let them adjust to the new reality. Outside, the valet line was long, but Mom didn't care. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the club sign, the entrance, even the stupid light fixtures. Oh, and that dessert tower, she said, flipping through her camera roll. Do you think I could post it with, so proud of our daughter's success tonight? I didn't answer. Courtney lingered near the curb. She looked tired, makeup smudged. That perfect tech leader confidence cracked open just a little. She stepped closer. I wasn't trying to be awful. I waited. I just didn't know, she said. I looked her straight in the eye. You didn't want to know. Her mouth twitched, but she didn't argue. Devin pulled me into a one-arm hug. It was awkward, tight but stiff. He let go quick, like he didn't want to overstep now. Seriously, he said, what you've done, it's badass. Thanks. Our cars arrived one after the other. Courtney got into hers first, still quiet. Mom gave me one last long look before sliding into the back seat of Dad's sedan. They didn't wave goodbye. I drove home with the windows cracked, letting the cool air hit my face. The past 5 years replayed in pieces. Late nights, client calls in my car, making payroll out of my own checking account. Every time they bragged about their promotions, while I kept building mine in silence. Every time I smiled and let them think they were ahead. Part of me felt satisfied. Not revenge satisfied, just settled. But mostly, I felt tired. Let them ask questions now. Let them Google me if they care. If they want to know who I really am, they can do the work. I'm done explaining. I pulled into my parking spot outside the same modest one-bedroom I've lived in since year 2 of the business. Rent paid 6 months in advance. No noise, no drama, just space to think. My phone buzzed. 3 new emails, 2 from clients, 1 from the club's regional director. I slid my bag over my shoulder and locked the car. Monday was already booked solid, just the way I liked it.